So originally this video was going to be about how strong was Arturia lore-wise, or how strong Arturia was when she was alive. However, yesterday we got a new announcement and servant, Lord Logres, who's another Saber variant. But what is this variant's story? Well, don't worry, I got you covered with that. This version is actually not a live Arturia, or normal Arturia at that fact. This variant is an amalgamation of all versions of Arturia and Arthur out there. Basically, the culmination of the legend of King Arthur, a combination of it. The reason why she is not called Arturia in-game and Lord Logres is well to avoid confusion, but Arturia was called Lord Logres as well, besides King Arthur, King of Knights, King of Storms, King of Fairies and Spirits, King of Battles. The name Lord Logres actually came from the territory/lands she ruled in Britain called Logres, whose capital was Camelot. However, this variant has stopped using her real name altogether. This is what was said in her profile. You see, what I mean when I say that she's a combination of different versions of King Arthur, or basically the legend of King Arthur, is actively shown in her Ascensions. In legend, King Arthur had two faces. One is a warrior king who actively participated in wars, in battles, went to the battlefields and fought alongside his armies, and the other is a cultured king, an armchair monarch, a pale king, or a ceremonial king, whichever word you prefer, who didn't engage in any battles basically, actively at the very least, maybe helped with strategies and stuff, but didn't go to the battlefield herself, and instead devoted himself entirely to the country and ruled from Camelot. Over time, Arturia or King Arthur's forms have changed many times. Basically, King Arthur started as an heir to the Welsh mythology, and from there served as a source for romantic chivalric tales. So basically the tales of chivalry and romance, that's where all that come from. King Arthur also served as a propaganda symbol to strengthen Christianity. Later rulers also used King Arthur's name in an effort to strengthen their armies, their countries, their morals, by claiming that King Arthur is this ideal knight and ideal king that we should all strive to be. So even now it is actually argued if King Arthur is or was an actual historical figure, but most people believe that King Arthur was not an actual historical figure. But many people considered this person as a role model. His very existence is a fantasy that lives in people's heart, because everyone wants to be an ideal person. You see, that is what this Lord Logres is. The ultimate embodiment of that fantasy. This version is not just the version that her father, King Uther, wanted, or Merlin wanted, or even her people wanted. This is a culmination of all of those things, so it is a combination of all three of those and more. You can say that this is the Arturia that Arturia herself held up to. This is the standard that she held herself up to. She is Arturia Pendragon, but only in essence, as she is no longer human. She is actually an elemental. It is the result of the conversion of various holy sword rituals that occurred in different parallel worlds. This existence, this Lord Logres servant, is actually similar to Arturia Avalon, a supporting device for human order. But in this case, there is no girl who is its foundation. The combination of different legends is the foundation of Lord Logres. This version basically is the King of Holy Swords who has perfected her role as king, calm, collected, and thoughtful, and doesn't have any lust for power, and values human impulse, including her own, to basically pursue ideals. However, she does not place absolute values on those ideals themselves. So her first ascension is basically Arturia as King of Battle, who has a straightforward speech, and she's not fully yet Lord. Her tone and personality in this form is actually closer to the normal Arturia that we see. She hates losing, and she speaks in a polite feminine style, like the original Arturia does. Because she views herself as a collection of possible what-ifs, her words are often objective, and as mentioned before, she hates losing. The second ascension is the Arturia I was talking about, who didn't participate actively in battle. This Arturia, this ascension, is based on that legend of King Arthur, who didn't participate in any active battles, but instead ruled the country from Camelot. This Artoria, in the second Ascension, this Artoria did not hide her gender and ascended to the throne as a woman. So that's why she actively uses a formal, polite, feminine style of speech, and her appearance is graceful. But still, the normal traits of Artoria like courage and respect and all those kind of things still remain in her unchanged. She never acts out of control like Artoria Avalon. She's a perfect noblewoman, you can say. And she also hates losing. The third Ascension is very similar to the first Saint Graph, but this one lacks the immaturity and hesitation. Just like before, she speaks firmly and confidently, and she hates losing. In fact, she absolutely refuses to lose. And this is also probably known by now, but in her grand duel, Solomon stated that Lord Logres was the strongest being and strongest heroic spirit whom he can summon as a grand servant. This is the only Artoria who is a servant who can use Avalon. Aside from her, every variant that we saw so far, including the one in Fate Extella and Fate Extella Link, cannot use Avalon, or at least doesn't use it. This variant, however, uses Avalon because, as I mentioned before, this version is a culmination of different versions of the legend, which is why she possesses Avalon, which is why she can use Avalon. Okay, this is where things are about to get crazy because now I'm going to talk about her in-game stuff. This unit is absolutely freaking busted. It is actually stupid how good this unit is. So let's talk with her class skills first of all. She has magic resistance at A rank, riding at A rank, Knight Order at A rank, and Knight of Inaction or Knight of Ideal at. So we already know what magic resistance does. It provides you debuff resistance up to 20%. We know what riding does. It increases your quick performance by 10%. But here's where things get crazy. Knight of Order. This thing grants self-on guts active buff, and it increases the target's guts recovery amount by 100% and increases the target's attack by 20% for 3 turns. That is insane. So basically, and here's where things get even more crazy because of her personal skills. Her first skill, Finis Dracon, which is ranked at EX and represents the incarnation of the last dragon of Britain, Albion. It is basically infinite magical energy and miracles far beyond human reach and their price, basically. This is what her profile said. This skill is insane. This skill charges her NP gauge every 5 turns, grants self-debuff immunity 1 time for 5 turns, increases her own buff removal resistance 1 time for 5 turns. However, it also has 2 demerits. It grants her self-debuff regeneration for 5 turns, which is treated as a buff here, and deals 1000 damage to herself every turn for 5 turns. Her second skill, which is Rex Mirror, ranked at A, increases party's attack for 3 turns, increases party's critical damage for 3 turns, increases party's critical attack chance resistance for 3 turns. So basically, if any of your 3 members are hit with a critical attack, there's a chance that they will resist the critical attack, and gains critical stars. So the base at basically level 1, she gains 30 critical stars, and at level 10, it is 50 critical stars. The third skill, Enis Gutrin, I'm sorry about the pronunciation, I've tried many times, this is the best I can do, that's the best you can get out of me. So this Enis grants her self-anti-purge defense for 2 attacks, 3 turns, increases her own buster performance for 3 turns, reduces the party's skill cooldown by 2. This is where the demerits come in. So there's a 500% chance to grant self-delayed debuff for 3 turns. This is treated as a buff and it ignores both debuff resistance and immunity. And there's a 500% chance to grant Lord Logres Dream of Lake Waters debuff for N turns. N basically is the number of your skill level. So if you are at level 1, Dream of Lake Water will last for 6 turns. But if you take it to level 10, it will only last for 2 levels, which is insane. Now let's talk about her Noble Phantasm. So her Noble Phantasm, Excalibur Excelsius, which is ranked at A+++, and it is an anti-fortress. It ignores invisibility for 1 turn, which activates first, deals damage to all enemies deals 200% extra damage against threat to humanity enemies, increases party's attack by 20% for 3 turns, charges her noble phantasm gauge by 20%, overcharges party NP by 1 stage for 1 time. So basically gives an overcharge for 1 time 1 turn for the entire party, and recovers party's HP by 200%. Tell me that's not stupid. Oh, and her overcharge, by the way, is that she increases her own NP damage for 1 turn, which also activates first. Her bond 10 CE is actually a lot similar to Artoria. It's called End of Time, and when equipped on Lord Logres, it increases the party's attack by 10% and increases party's damage against threat of humanity enemies by 15% while she is on the field. And I have to say, I fucking love the art. And the art of her essence actually shows how this is a combination of different Artorias. And now we can talk about things that are actually crazy. This version, this Artoria, is actually stupidly strong. Not only on paper, but also in effect. The biggest demerit, or the biggest drawback to her, is her 3rd skill, which is good, but is not needed for her to just do crazy amount of damage. You can actually use 2 Cleansika of Light on her to basically farm like crazy without having a need for a 3rd support. So you don't need Oberon or Raver. You can just use 2 KOLs and she can absolutely farm without any issue. Because she, basically when you take her skills to level 10, she actively can regenerate 50% of her NP from her 1st skill, and she gains 20% from her noble phantasm. That means she can get 20%. This means that this servant, this saber, can freaking Black Grail Buster farm without a 3rd servant. You only need 2 servants to Buster farm. Sorry, 2 support servants to Buster farm with this Artoria. And here's the thing, her skill cooldowns are actually up there. Basically her 1st skill cooldown when you upgrade it to level 10 is 8, the 2nd skill cooldown is 6, and the 3rd skill's cooldown is 10. However, you can actually unlock her 5th append skill reloading, which reduces the cooldown by 1 for n turns. So basically, at level 10, the 1st skill's cooldown will then change to 5, the 2nd skill cooldown will then change to 3, and the 3rd skill cooldown will then change to 7. That means if you have 2 KOLs, you can actively spam her 1st and 2nd skill multiple times and deal damage. XNiam has made a video about this, I'll link it in the description below, but just know that you can actively make it even better if you include other servants who can use your cooldown, or you bring in another support who actively makes it so that you can deal more damage. This is an absolutely crazy unit, and all I know is that I'm gonna NP5 this saber like crazy. Will she still be my Gran? I don't know. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know this is kind of long than other videos out there, but I also explained some things about her, and then I talked about her kit a little bit. I know I didn't talk too much about it because that was not the purpose of this video. If you want to know more about how good she is at farming and other stuff, I'll link some videos in the description below that you can go and check out to get a better idea. With that being said and done, adios.